In a time when dinosaurs ruled the Earth, what was it like? The earliest dinosaurs were about the height of a chicken. Besides dinosaurs, the Earth was also home to some bizarre and terrifying creatures, some of which even preyed on dinosaurs. This episode, a bit long, will take you on a journey through this chaotic era of paleontological warlords. Subscribe to the channel and dive deep into the age of dinosaurs. Don't miss more incredible journeys into Earth's past with PreHistoric, and hit that like button to help us bring more prehistoric adventures to you. The Triassic period, humble beginnings and strange creatures. Around 230 million years ago, in the late Triassic, one of the earliest dinosaurs to appear on Earth was the Eoraptor. It wasn't even as tall as a chicken. Some once believed it was a carnivorous scavenger, but we now know it was likely a granivore, feeding on new vegetation sprouting across the globe. Dinosaurs didn't stay small for long. They rapidly evolved. Their limbs became more flexible, and their neck bones grew stronger, capable of supporting more muscle. These evolutions allowed dinosaurs to gradually become larger and more imposing creatures. For example, the Herrerasaurus, about 3 meters long, was one of the largest carnivorous dinosaurs of its time. It had strong legs and clawed forearms, enabling it to chase and attack smaller prey. Like most early dinosaurs, the exact position of Herrerasaurus in the dinosaur evolutionary tree remains unclear, but it undoubtedly set the standard for later carnivorous dinosaurs that roamed the Earth. Herbivorous dinosaurs also grew in size. The Plateosaurus, for instance, could reach 8 meters in length. It likely stood on its hind legs to reach high vegetation, an action made easier by its exceptionally long neck. This long-necked feature was common in later dinosaur species. Overall, early dinosaurs shared similar body plans: bipedal locomotion, long tails, and long necks. However, dinosaurs were still a long way from dominating the world. The Triassic wilderness was also home to many peculiar animals. One of the most striking was the Longisquama, a reptile with prominent appendages along its back. To this day, no one knows for certain what these appendages were for or even what they were made of. Some speculate they were extremely elongated scales, while others theorize they might be one of the earliest signs of feathers. Mastering the skies and seas. Speaking of feathers, what was the sky like at that time? Towards the end of the Triassic, one creature evolved the ability to fly, and with this advantage dominated the skies, the pterosaur. These reptiles had hollow bones filled with air, making them light enough to sustain flight. With no competition, the sky became their domain. Eudimorphodon was one of the earliest pterosaurs. It had a bizarre appearance with a long tail and unusual teeth, ranging from sharp fangs to smaller multi-cusp teeth. Given its small size, only about a meter, paleontologists believe it fed on small fish. Its large front teeth were suitable for catching small fish, while its back teeth were good for tearing fish meat. This brings to mind that not only primitive fish cruised the oceans, marine reptiles also made their first appearance in the Triassic. The most famous were the long-necked plesiosaurs and the terrifying fish-like ichthyosaurs. Notably, Triassic ichthyosaurs are estimated to have reached lengths of about 25 meters, making them the largest known predators. These magnificent creatures roamed the Earth for millions of years. But then, around 201 million years ago, the supercontinent Pangaea began to break apart. The movement of tectonic plates triggered catastrophic volcanic activity, leading to the demise of the Triassic. 4 massive volcanic eruptions caused atmospheric temperatures to plummet, then soar, igniting wildfires. A staggering 76% of life on Earth was annihilated. Even common terrestrial animals like the top predator Postosuchus went extinct. However, miraculously, most dinosaurs survived. The volcanic activity initially released large amounts of sulfur and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight and causing an extremely cold volcanic winter, which wiped out many species. Most dinosaurs, though, had already evolved warm feathers, allowing them to withstand the severe cold in areas closer to the poles, where vegetation was more abundant. This adaptation saved them. When the climate warmed again, they were able to adapt to the hot environment. With the disappearance of numerous competitors, the stage was set for dinosaurs to dominate.
The Jurassic period was about to begin. The Jurassic period. Giants emerge and new adaptations. As Pangaea continued to break apart, two new continents formed, Laurasia and Gondwana. These two landmasses were separated by the ancient Tethys Ocean. By the end of the Jurassic, the Atlantic Ocean also began to form, with various straits and islands constantly emerging, shaping an entirely new landscape. Despite the volcanic winter, the long-term effects of the late Triassic extinction event caused Earth to warm significantly. The now tropical oceans provided a perfect home for the evolving marine reptiles. They not only survived the Triassic extinction, but also thrived. Ichthyosaurs were no longer as massive as their Triassic ancestors, but continued to evolve, particularly in their eyes. They became known for having the largest eyes in the animal kingdom. Take the ophthalmosaurus, for example, whose eyes were nearly 23 centimeters in diameter. Relative to its body length of about 5.8 meters, this was the largest eye-to-body ratio among all reptiles. Such massive eyes allowed it to see prey in the deepest parts of the ocean. But the ocean wasn't just home to reptiles and fish. Meet the Anomalocaris, not an alien creature, but a fascinating one. Compared to Ophthalmosaurus, its eyes took up a quarter of its 20-centimeter body length. It would lie in wait, ambushing unsuspecting prey as they swam by, then grabbing them with its sharp claws for a feast. It looks somewhat like a crustacean, but it actually belongs to a long-extinct distant family called Anomalocaridae. Terrestrial transformations, plants, herbivores, and predators. Back on land, the tropical climate also brought other significant changes. Plants flourished, with vast tracts of more modern conifer forests covering the land. By the end of the Jurassic, almost all plant species existing today had appeared. This lush land was also home to various ferns and ginkgo trees, all gymnosperms, whose seeds are exposed and spread by wind. With so many new plants, naturally there were also many small animals that fed on them. Now let's refocus on the protagonists, dinosaurs. Triassic dinosaurs were too primitive to be easily classified, but by the Jurassic, these creatures began to clearly fall into the iconic categories that define them. For example, Lysophosaurus was one of the earliest ornithischian dinosaurs, a group that also includes ceratopsians and stegosaurs. Lysophosaurus was a small herbivorous dinosaur, about a meter long, similar in height to a gene. They likely lived in herds to ward off predators. All ornithischians evolved bird-like hips, which grew downwards and backward rather than forward. Initially, it was thought this provided more stomach space for food digestion, but now some believe it may have aided respiration. Whatever the reason, this adaptation persisted in all descendants of this family, demonstrating its significant role. Coupled with their highly specialized teeth suitable for grinding plants, ornithischians became exceptionally successful. On the other hand, the sauropods emerged. These colossal, long-necked giants first appeared in the early Jurassic and were already formidable. By the late Jurassic, around 160 million years ago, they had become truly enormous. Representative examples include Mamenchisaurus and Diplodocus, both herbivores. One was vertically colossal, the other horizontally. Mamenchisaurus, with its 15-meter-long neck, reached high vegetation, and its entire body was very long, up to 26 meters, almost as long as two semi-trailer trucks. But even so, Diplodocus was even larger. The longest Diplodocus specimen found so far is 33 meters long, equivalent to half the wingspan of a Boeing 747, truly the largest terrestrial animal. Sauropods had almost no natural enemies and could grow uninhibited. Defense mechanisms and fearsome hunters. Not all herbivorous dinosaurs were so massive. How did smaller dinosaurs defend themselves? Take the Stegosaurus, for example. It used its spiky tail, swinging it with great force during encounters with enemies, delivering a fierce blow to any predator. Although not as large as Diplodocus, they were still sizable, with some Stegosaurus being longer than a city bus. With their large bodies and sharp tail spikes, they were well equipped to protect themselves. As for the plates on Stegosaurus's back, there are several different theories. Initially, they were thought to be extra defensive weapons, but this view has been disproven as the plates might have been too fragile. Now it's more commonly believed that these plates were used for mating displays or to deter other Stegosaurus. So, what fearsome predators lurked in the Jurassic forests? They were the theropods.
This category includes almost all carnivorous dinosaurs you can imagine. At the top of the food chain in the Jurassic was likely the Allosaurus. Its mouth was filled with serrated teeth, its forelimbs equipped with incredibly sharp claws, and it had strong, powerful legs, perfectly designed for actively pursuing prey. It was like an oversized lion, capable of short sprints, but not prolonged chases. Whether it was a social animal like a lion is still debated. Some believed they hunted in groups, cooperatively taking down difficult prey like Stegosaurus. But others argued they were territorial, solitary animals, more likely to kill each other than cooperate. In fact, the latter view is quite convincing. After all, Allosaurus was 5 meters tall and up to 12 meters long. Such massive dinosaurs needed a lot of food. It's hard to imagine them sharing. Misconceptions and avian ancestors. The Dilophosaurus also roamed the Jurassic lands. This is the iconic, frilled, venom-spitting dinosaur from the Jurassic Park movie. However, it might be disappointing to hear that there's no evidence of Dilophosaurus having a frill or spitting venom. Also, unlike its movie portrayal, it wasn't a small predator. It was almost as tall as Yao Ming and longer than 1.5 Mini Coopers. So where did the venom idea come from? Dilophosaurus had a strange notch in its lower jaw, which initially made experts doubt its bite force. If its bite force wasn't strong enough to subdue prey, it must have had other hunting methods, leading to the venom speculation. But due to lack of actual evidence, a more plausible theory now is that Dilophosaurus was either a scavenger that used its large size to intimidate other scavengers, or a skilled fish hunter. Now, after repeated studies of Dilophosaurus's jaw, scientists believe its bite force was much stronger than initially estimated. Good thing it's extinct. I wouldn't want to encounter this guy in a dark alley. Elsewhere, some other theropod dinosaurs achieved an astonishing evolution and began to fly into the sky. Archaeopteryx was one of them. Although only the size of a magpie, its discovery in 1861 caused a sensation in paleontology. At that time, Darwin's theory of evolution had just been proposed and was highly controversial. And this striking dinosaur provided strong evidence for evolution. Archaeopteryx evolved feathers and was capable of flight, though whether it flew or glided is still unclear. Archaeopteryx is a concrete example of biological evolution, demonstrating the specific adaptations of theropod dinosaurs to their environment. In the era it was discovered, this was undoubtedly a groundbreaking and significant finding. Pterosaur dominance and mammalian evolution. Despite Archaeopteryx's efforts to take to the skies, the Jurassic sky was still dominated by pterosaurs, and by now there were even more types. Like other dinosaurs, as the Jurassic period progressed, pterosaurs also grew larger. Rhamphorhynchus was one of the largest Jurassic pterosaurs, similar in size to today's largest flying bird, the wandering albatross.
It had peculiar teeth, possibly for catching fish and squid in the ocean. Additionally, another group of pterosaurs, the pterodactyls, later grew even larger. Unlike other dinosaurs, these creatures had short tails, longer skulls, and often sported prominent crests for mating displays. These fish-eating creatures also seemed to have throat pouches, possibly to help them drain excess seawater after catching fish from the ocean. Pterodactyls had humble beginnings, but their true potential was realized in the next period of Earth's history. Mammals, however, needed more time to develop and evolve. Our ancestors diversified and proliferated, evolving various new adaptations, learning to climb, burrow, and glide. Many people believe that mammals struggled to survive in a dinosaur-dominated world, but this wasn't the case. It's just that they had to wait until after the Jurassic to truly flourish. The Cretaceous period, flowering plants, mega creatures, and final extinction. Speaking of which, you might expect me to talk about another global catastrophe, but actually, no. The boundary between the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods is not marked by a significant mass extinction event. Because of this boundary is difficult to pinpoint precisely. Scientists believe the Jurassic ended around 145 million years ago, but this division is quite subjective. Geological periods change extremely slowly. The late Jurassic and early Cretaceous may have looked very similar. However, one thing is certain: the Cretaceous would not remain static. A key development was the evolution of flowering plants, followed by bees, which pollinated plants and aided their spread. This ultimately became one of the most influential transformations in Earth's history. As the Cretaceous progressed, the continents continued their slow and steady movement, gradually taking on the familiar shapes we see today. These plate movements pulled Earth's tectonic plates apart, creating channels for lava to erupt from the rifts, causing massive volcanic eruptions. The volcanic eruptions were followed by widespread global warming. The Cretaceous may have been one of the warmest periods in Earth's history. Rampant volcanic activity caused ice caps to melt and sea levels to rise sharply. In fact, sea levels during this era were the highest in Earth's history. Naturally, with so much water, marine reptiles entered their golden age. A new dominant species emerged, the mosasaurs. These snake-like predatory animals scoured the seafloor for prey. The mosasaur family was extremely successful, proliferating in the oceans and thriving throughout the entire Cretaceous. But the most formidable of them all was the Mosasaurus hoffmanni. This giant predator is estimated to have reached lengths of up to 17 meters, equivalent to 3 giraffes. However, mosasaurs and giraffes shared no similarities whatsoever. As the T0 version of the Cretaceous oceans, they ate almost anything: fish, ichthyosaurs, plesiosaurs, and even ammonites. The thought alone is terrifying. The Cretaceous also had a less terrifying creature, the archelon, the largest sea turtle ever. At first glance, you might think it resembles a modern sea turtle, but you'll think differently when you learn it could reach 4.6 meters in length and weigh over 2,041 kilograms. Above the water, in the sky, pterosaurs finally reached their peak. The iconic pteranodon soared, snatching fish from the waters below. Its wingspan could reach 7 meters, but pteranodon wasn't the largest. Another, quetzalcoatlus, might have been the largest flying animal ever. When standing, it was as tall as a giraffe, with a wingspan of 12 meters. This pterosaur looked like a monster. It's hard to imagine such a giant flying. It likely fed on lizards, small dinosaurs, and other small animals, swallowing them whole. Land dwellers and the rise of superpredators. However, the sky wasn't the only place with amazing creatures. On land, apart from the newly emerged flowering plants, other plant species remained largely unchanged. Many animals, such as snakes and lizards, evolved into more modern forms, but some of them were not cute little animals, but prehistoric monsters. For example, the Beelzebufo, also known as the devil frog. Why is it called that? Simply because it ate dinosaurs, albeit only juvenile ones. Even so, that's quite impressive for a frog. This frog was almost certainly the largest frog of its time, nearly 40 centimeters long. The Beelzebufo wasn't the only animal that preyed on dinosaurs. Crocodilians and their close relatives also flourished in the Cretaceous. Unlike the devil frog, Dinosuchus hunted adult dinosaurs. It might have been the largest crocodile ever. This giant crocodile was as tall as an adult human and 12 meters long, possibly even longer. Some paleontologists speculate that it could ambush dinosaurs like modern crocodiles, lurking in lakes and other bodies of water, launching surprise attacks when dinosaurs lowered their heads to drink. This is because bite marks from Dinosuchus have been found on the fossils of the largest and most ferocious dinosaurs of that era, indicating that this crocodile was utterly fearless. The Jurassic is often considered the age of giants, and indeed dinosaurs began to grow huge during this period. But in the Cretaceous, everything reached its extreme. We don't fully understand why, but it might be related to the atmospheric composition at the time. By the mid-Cretaceous, dinosaurs had virtually no competition in their ecological niches. This situation lasted for about 100 million years, allowing them to grow and adapt without survival pressure, further refining their ways of life. Size usually implies strength, protection, and deterrence, and these dinosaurs were undoubtedly very intimidating. Cretaceous giants and unstoppable hunters. Remember those massive sauropods from the Jurassic? Compared to the Titanosaurs, they looked like children. Titanosaurs were super large sauropods, the largest of which was possibly Argentinosaurus. Its maximum estimated length was 26 meters, almost as long as a small-span bridge, and it weighed 65 tons, as heavy as a blue whale. Like previous sauropods, it was only interested in plants, using its long neck to reach high vegetation for food. But in the Cretaceous, not only sauropods grew larger, arachniodinosaurs also underwent evolution and diversification. Some evolved into ceratopsians like the Triceratops and Styracosaurus. These horned and frilled dinosaurs had massive horns, powerful enough to deter the most deadly predators of the era. Elsewhere, pachycephalosaurs also appeared. These bipedal animals had thick skulls, possibly used for self-defense or head-butting competitors like elk. However, the most numerous ornithischians were probably the hadrosaurs, also known as the sheep of the Mesozoic, found in herds everywhere. Unlike sheep, their mouths were filled with hundreds of teeth, perfect for grasping and grinding vegetation. Some dinosaurs, like Corythosaurus, even had large hollow crests on their heads. Scientists are still unsure of the crest's purpose, with several theories suggesting it might have been used for communication through blowing air, regulating body temperature, or even as a built-in snorkel. Finally, the ankylosaurs also had their heyday. We now know these mobile fortresses may have originated in the Jurassic, but were most successful in the Cretaceous. The most famous is probably Ankylosaurus. Although a herbivore, its entire body was covered in bony armor, and it had a massive tail club at the end of its tail, making predatory theropods generally hesitant to approach it. However, this doesn't mean no theropods preyed on these giant armored animals. Elsewhere, feathered dromaeosaurs roamed the land. They used their large, curved claws to grasp difficult-to-catch prey. Perhaps you're more familiar with their other name, raptors. The super-intelligent, group-hunting raptors in the Jurassic Park movie are likely fictional, as there is almost no evidence now that they cooperated. While we consider them relatively intelligent among dinosaurs, they are far from human-like intelligence. Perhaps the strangest theropod dinosaur was the Mononychus. This peculiar, chicken-sized dinosaur had hair-like feathers and strange horny spikes on its shoulders. These spikes were likely used to deter competitors or for mating displays, not likely as weapons because they were too impractical. Mononychus also seemed to feed on insects and small lizards. Unless it wanted to skewer its prey into a kind of bug kebab, I really can't imagine what these spikes were for. Although we're nearing the end of this journey, don't worry, because I still have some bizarre species to tell you about. For example, Dinosaurs. This omnivorous, peculiar dinosaur was the largest of the Ornithomimidae family. When standing, it could exceed 4.6 meters, as tall as a utility pole. It was likely covered in feathers, had a spoon-shaped mouth, and long, thin arms ending in deadly claws. Another theropod dinosaur famous for its terrifying claws was the tyrannosaurus. It was like some combination of a giraffe, an anteater, and a dinosaur. This unique, nearly 6-meter-tall dinosaur likely used its massive, meter-long claws to pull down high branches to get food. It might also have used its claws for self-defense, like modern giant anteaters, capable of causing significant harm when threatened. The reign of tyrants and aquatic hunters. I'm sure you've been waiting for the appearance of the Tyrannosaurus rex. Although it wasn't the largest dinosaur, it was certainly the most ferocious. Tyrannosaurus rex was 12 meters long and 2 adult humans tall. It was a natural hunter, with an acute sense of smell to track prey. Once it caught its prey, its massive mouth had the strongest bite force of any known animal. It also had strangely small, short arms, but no one knows for sure what these arms were for. Some speculate that when the Tyrannosaurus rex bit its prey, the small arms could be used to slash the prey. Others say they were for holding on to mates during copulation. Still others believe they were simply vestigial organs, useless remnants. If Tyrannosaurus rex continued to evolve, these arms might have disappeared entirely. After all, with such a powerful mouth, who needs arms? If Tyrannosaurus rex wasn't the largest theropod dinosaur, then who was? It was the Spinosaurus. However, it was completely different from Tyrannosaurus rex. Spinosaurus mostly didn't hunt other dinosaurs. It likely fed primarily on fish. But if there was a drought and a dinosaur was nearby, Spinosaurus certainly wouldn't refuse a buffet. Its dense bone structure made it relatively easy to dive underwater to hunt. Whether it lurked by the lake or swam in the water to hunt is still debated. If it could swim, its huge dorsal sail and strange tail might have helped propel it in the water. However, the sail could also have been used to regulate body temperature or attract mates. We cannot be certain yet. Meanwhile, mammals also evolved a key feature, the placenta, used to provide nutrition to the fetus during gestation. Basically, all currently existing mammals possess this feature. At this point, mammals already had many useful tools and unlimited potential. They just needed an opportunity. But that time had not yet come. The end of an era, the KPG extinction event. The Cretaceous period ended approximately 66 million years ago, accompanied by one of the most famous mass extinction events in Earth's history. Towards its end, volcanic eruptions became increasingly frequent, with massive lava flows releasing large amounts of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Consequently, the proportion of oxygen in the atmosphere decreased. Some scientists believe this led to the suffocation of many large dinosaurs. This means that the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction is one of the most mysterious unsolved mysteries. Many people also strongly deny that oxygen levels were related to the extinction of dinosaurs. Regardless, oxygen was certainly not the only problem. The continents continued to move, disrupting and disturbing the entire ecosystem. Just when things seemed as bad as they could get, the true apocalyptic disaster fell from the sky. A massive asteroid, more than 10 kilometers in diameter, impacted Earth, forming a 179-kilometer-wide crater. The impact generated shock waves that traveled globally, triggering wildfires, earthquakes, tsunamis, and various catastrophic natural disasters. A large amount of volcanic ash filled the atmosphere, blocking sunlight for months. In such harsh conditions, up to 60% of plants died, and all large animals went extinct. Small creatures like mammals, lizards, snakes, and fish might have survived by hiding underground or in the deep sea. But large marine reptiles such as plesiosaurs all went extinct, and pterosaurs completely disappeared. Of course, most dinosaurs also went extinct. Most? Didn't you mean all? Actually, not all dinosaurs went extinct. At least one type survived, small feathered theropod dinosaurs. Their small size allowed them to survive in the harsh environment and endure the disaster. They later evolved into birds, and to this day they are served on dinner tables and even made into cat food. The former rulers of Earth have fallen to such a state. After this great catastrophe, the surviving small animals crawled out of their burrows to face a desolate world. The Mesozoic era, the age of reptiles, finally ended. It was finally time for mammals to rule the Earth. The golden age of mammals had officially arrived. But that is another story. This information comes from PreHistoric.